So January here in 2014 has generated some early surprises for us, Cover Killer Nation. And probably one of the surprises that many people probably knew that was coming, along with a lot of the others, that perhaps they had a lot of hype for, either that or of a lot of excitement toward, was the new Periphery EP entitled Clear. That's what we're here to talk about today. Periphery, a couple of years ago, released an album entitled 2, this time it's personal. And I made some bold declarations on that album review, saying that Periphery had the potential to really cross over and perhaps even get some radio airplay. Now, I don't know if that happened where you live or, in your area or corner of the world, but unfortunately that did not come to fruition over here. But that's okay, because the album still had a lot of great things to it and a lot of good going for it. So in reality, it almost didn't matter. It was one of those things where I was still able to encourage a lot of people to pick up this album, considering I do work at a record store. And all in all, it was still something that was able to remain a couple of people's dirty little secret that kind of made them a little bit more awesome than the person that came in after them. Elitism aside, I suppose, let's talk about this EP. This EP has a bit of an interesting history to it, a bit of an interesting story to it. This is a 7-track album that, aside from the very first track entitled Overture, each and every single member of Periphery, each different member, should I say, was the music director or the composer, the primary person that was in charge of composing each song. This is a unique little idea that's been done by bands before. We, of course, have the most striking situation that kind of resembles that in Kiss, each releasing a solo album with one of their faces on it. Now, whether or not it's exactly the same or not, that really is up to the music guru in you to really kind of do the research, but it was kind of an interesting idea like that. This is one instead they decided to do for this EP, and the result is actually kind of cool. Basically, the reason why this was taking place was because there's a plethora of different styles that exist within this band. It's something that really, the uniqueness of their individual tastes really is able to come together to produce the Periphery sound that we hear and love today. So this is a band that, even though they're considered one of the pioneers of djent and one of the most important members of the djent movement, this is a band that is definitely rich in different styles of music and different influences, and those are able to come out a little bit more noticeably, at least, on this EP. This is an EP that's going to be available a little bit later on this month, and it's going to be coverless, which I think is kind of a cool little concept, a little Kanye West approach right there, but I think that Periphery will be able to pull it off a lot better, especially considering the title of the EP is Clear, and not having a cover means it's clear, as opposed to it being called, Yeezus, and that has nothing to do with it being coverless. Yeah. So anyway, let's take a look at this a little bit by a piece-by-piece standpoint, at least, in a way. Now, there's a couple of songs on here, and there's a couple of instrumentals that need to be spoken about. Extraneous and Zero are the two instrumentals. This really is able to retain a little bit more of their principled djent approach, and really this is where it sort of bleeds out a little bit more. And I really have to say that Zero is one of the best tracks that I hear on this EP right away, and the fact that it's an instrumental, it's nothing against their singing abilities or anything like that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just from a songwriting standpoint, from a uniqueness standpoint, really this is the song that for me really juts out and has all of the strength really built behind it. There's a nice little animals as leaders feel to it a little bit in the style of the instrumental and the instrumentalization that's behind it, obviously, and it just has a really great feel, a really great texture to it. The layers on this on this song right here are definitely some of the thickest that you're going to hear on the entire record. And Pale Aura, which is the last track on this album, which does have lyrics, does have a lot of that texture as well. After a soft piano opening, you kind of thrust right into it, and it's really quite a fitting opener, or closer, should I say, because it really is able to take a lot of the energy that you have from the remainder of the EP that you've already heard, and it really reinforces it very nicely. Now, the Summer Jam and Feed the Ground, I get a lot of modern metal feels. I get a little bit of Coheed and Cambria here and there, especially with the Summer Jam. With Feed the Ground, I get a little bit more of a Gothenburg feel, surprisingly enough, with the introduction the way that it is. So there's a lot of different influences that you're seeing already just from a track-to-track basis, which is basically what this album was going for, what this EP was going for, should I say. So it definitely is able to fulfill that prophecy very, very nicely. The Parade of Ashes is a little bit more of a vocally driven song, which makes a lot of sense considering the composer of this is their singer, and it's certainly one that definitely delivers a lot of the different sides that he is able to possess, and definitely reinforces that approach very, very nicely. Overall, as an EP, that is trying to do something that showcases each individual member's direct influences, at least in a little bit more of a noticeable way than you hear maybe on the albums. This is certainly an EP that accomplishes that task. This is one where you can definitely feel a little bit of the differences between the members, and you can kind of more articulately maybe sense where some of the different influences that you hear on the albums really come from, where those are being drawn from, as opposed to it being more of a collective idea. This is something that maybe, just maybe, whenever the songwriting process is taking place, you can see why some of the members perhaps go about things or write things a certain way, because it not only fits into the Periphery sound, but it's also something that is deeply reinforced by their own influence as a musician. So in that format, this definitely is able to accomplish its task. As far as musicality is concerned, as far as the flow of this is concerned, it's put together very, very nicely. It's one where the flow is never disturbed by one of the tracks. It's one where nothing ever makes this EP feels like feeling like it's grinding to a halt or anything like that. This is something that is able to move by and flow by seamlessly. So with that said, overall, this is a body of work. This is an EP that is certainly worth owning. This is not one that I'm going to assign a review score to, considering this is an EP as opposed to an LP. But instead, I'm going to say, on a recommendation-only based level, that this is going to be one that whenever it's released, you're going to want to pick up. You're going to want to give it a shot. You're going to certainly want to have this in your collection. Very similarly to how Icarus was certainly an EP that, it was a little bit more tailor-made for hardcore fans. It was a little more tailor-made to the extremist in the bunch that really just loves this band with every fiber of their being. But even the casual fan could enjoy it and find some things about it that they really dug. This is one that is a little bit more tailored to everybody, to anybody who really likes the Periphery sound, that enjoys the Periphery name, considering it really gives you a little bit more of a intimate portrait of each individual member of the band on a musical level, and that idea is really very well conveyed through the music, which thus makes this a very, very nice package, one that I definitely have to give my seal of approval to, and one that I will definitely say you gotta have whenever it comes out. So hey, that's all I really have to say about that. Whenever this is released later on in January, I expect to see each and every one of you posting about how you picked it up. And let me just ask you this. What was your favorite track off of this EP? Have you listened to it yet? This is one that you need to listen to. So after you've listened to this, let me know what your favorite track is. What's your favorite Periphery track in general? What do you like about this band? What don't you like about this band? And finally, what do you think about Gent as a whole? Talk later.